In the last video, we were ending up with the idea of monopolies. And a monopoly is where a person or company has the most dominant control over what their company produces or creates. And so you might, an example of that would be Carnegie, Andrew Carnegie, and his idea, and he developed, his monopoly was in making steel. Now remember, this is the time in our country you needed steel for all this development going on out west, starting out with the railroads. You need the idea of using steel now with that Bessemer process we talked about a little earlier, how you could create very strong, high quality steel at less expensive prices. They're starting to look at buildings and create steel buildings. Steel to be the, instead of wood, the framing for the buildings. And so now with a much stronger material, you are not limited to building a building that's 3 stories. Now you can go higher. And so now, just from steel here and his monopoly with it, we start looking at how it impacted the growth of cities, that they were running out of room, so they built skyscrapers and began to build up. And then we have Rockefeller, who he made tons of money with oil, and his monopoly with that, Standard Oil. And so as we would have these business monopolies that controlled, he controlled much of the oil in the United States, he controlled much of the steel production in the United States, which they used and sold it overseas. And so you have a single person or a single company mainly in control, and they can control the prices, and they can manage the market. And so they begin to think of themselves, and this is right during the period when, 30, 40 years after Darwin came up with this theory of evolution, that those people who work hard and can make money and be successful, well, they're better. They have, they motivate themselves. They are better skilled. They're a better class of person. And here are some of their comments about that. People who are unable to motivate themselves must be content with being with mediocrity. And mediocrity means just where things are so-so. Nothing's great, nothing's excellent, nothing is the best. It's just blah and so-so, no matter how impressive their other talents. So what he's saying here is, if you don't motivate yourself, if you don't work hard, it doesn't matter what your other talents are. You will live a mediocre or so-so life. And he really saw that, if you're going to work hard, that says something about the quality of you as a person. Rockefeller, good leadership consists of showing average people how to do the work of superior people. He doesn't even hide the fact that in his worldview, there are great people, superior people, then there's your average. Your typical ones who just kind of do life. And then you have your below average people who are the criminals and things like that. And so in this business, they've taken the Darwinism and they've applied it to social models, a business model. If you work hard and you become successful, well, then you're a superior person. Whatever you do that we define as successful, then you are better than the average person. And it gives this whole idea of, well, you've helped the species along better, and so it is the application of social Darwinism. And to just elaborate on it a bit more, Darwinism is that theory by Charles Darwin that explains that the species that survive are the fittest and the strongest. And so they applied that to business. And these leaders and social leaders said that the biggest and largest businesses have the natural right to expand and survive. They are better. And social leaders began to apply that theory to different groups of people. So if you're an immigrant and you just come over here and you want to jump in on the success of the United States expanding and all the new business and the new factories in the city, and maybe own land that they could not get, especially in Europe. Owning land was by a few. Then if you're an immigrant or you're a Native American, we had better technologies. We pushed you off your land, and African Americans, I mean, after all, you used to be slaves. Then obviously you are lesser people than we are. And there really began to be this paternal or this parent type perspective of, well, us social and business leaders who are successful, it's really our job to take care of you little people. And it was the whole idea of not only are we better, but then they threw in this moral element of, well, now we have an obligation to take care of you little ones, or the ones that are not as good. Examples of social Darwinism in business, the whole idea of, while the law of competition may sometimes be hard for the individual, it is best for the race. And so now they really are applying this to whole people group, to humanity, that there are better ones, because it ensures the survival of the fittest in every department. So Andrew Carnegie, he is a huge steel magnate. He's like, well, if you're poor, and if you don't have, if you're not working hard and being successful and coming up with things, well, you're just not made to do that. We are smarter, better, we get more done, so of course we should have this, and that helps our race. And this whole idea, the survival of the fittest, here in this cartoon, you might say, here is the representing the business baron, the business owner, and they're like, oh no, we only want the best working here. You're not good enough. And so it's the idea of, taking his theory and saying there are more fit, smarter, better people than others. And so how do you handle that when you're an immigrant coming to the United States? That is something we'll look at in the next video.